northern South Korea, in a largely unexplored region. A group of people in various outfits gathered in one place. The young man, flustered and nervous, stood behind watching. Suddenly, a middle-aged man approached, holding 2 cups of warm water, and asked him, "Hey kid, is this your first time joining an expedition?" The boy kindly accepted the cup of water and replied shyly, "I've been to dungeons and teleportation gates before, but this is my first time in an unexplored region. Perhaps that's why I'm a bit tense." "Thank you." The man laughed heartily, dispelling the tense atmosphere. "It's best to prepare yourself thoroughly," the man explained. "The unexplored region is a hell of monsters, a place that hasn't been tamed for hundreds of years. Ancient monsters teem everywhere there." The young man turned and asked, "But the leader of this expedition, he's from the Sungmu clan, right? I heard he's the younger brother of the current head of the family, so he must be very strong." The man glanced over and replied, "Oh, him? He's just a lesser son, very weak, even got exiled by the clan. This person with dark blue hair and a gloomy face. He is the 9th son of the Sungmu clan, Lee Cheon." The man deliberately spoke loudly for Lee Cheon to hear. Not only does he lack talent, but he also has no willpower or perseverance. At his age, he's only a level 7 martial artist. How can anyone trust someone like that? Lee Cheon clenched his sword, knowing that getting angry wouldn't achieve anything. Suddenly, footsteps approached him. He spoke, his face contemptuous. "Let's keep moving, expedition leader." He looked at him indifferently, then lowered his head and replied, "Understood." They began to enter the unexplored region. He had a bad feeling, he thought. The Shadow Sword Squad, the Sungmu clan's personal army, but it didn't feel like a regular escort team. There was definitely something wrong with this mission. Many years ago, Lee Cheon once had high hopes for his life. When he first realized the weight of the Sungmu clan name, when he was chosen by the highest grade weapon in the sword selection ceremony. At that time, Lee Cheon thought that if he continued to try hard and prove himself step by step, perhaps one day he would be recognized, but that never happened. The doctor examining Lee Cheon pointed his stick at the X-ray image and said, "Look at this. I've never seen mana veins like these. Unsuitable for learning magic, and he can't practice martial arts stably either." This left him and his mother utterly shocked. The doctor continued, "With a body like that, I'm afraid young Master Lee Cheon won't even reach level 9. His father, listening to the situation through the crack in the door, quickly turned away and sighed. So ever since Lee Cheon's strange constitution was discovered, his selection in the sword ceremony was just considered a random mistake. Even so, he still tried with all his stubbornness. Although they said he would never reach level 9, Lee Cheon eventually proved himself to be a level 7 martial artist at the age of 25. Even though for other clan members, that was an achievement they reached in their childhood, he was still very happy with his own accomplishment. But that joy didn't last long. At the age of 30, Lee Cheon was exiled from the clan. The only thing that allowed him to leave intact was the help of his eldest brother. And so for the past 10 years he lived like a dead man, running away from everything. Until a chaotic period arrived, homeless people gathered in one place, lying in the middle of a snowstorm. They used newspapers or anything flammable to keep warm. The reason was that the unexplored region was expanding and monsters were pouring out, attacking more fiercely. Lee Cheon was also one of the wanderers in that area. He reached out and caught a piece of newspaper that flew into his head, then pulled it down. Lee Cheon stared, reading the information on the newspaper. Inside it said that the prophet Jin, who had become a star in the sky. It turned out to be his father, known as the pinnacle of Korean martial arts, the head of the Sungmu clan, who had passed away suddenly. Footsteps approached him. Someone spoke, "Ninth young master Lee Cheon." He looked up in surprise. It was the Sungmu clan's Shadow Sword Squad. Lee Cheon was puzzled. How did they find him? They handed him a piece of paper and said, "This is an order for the young master." Lee Cheon sighed wearily. "What a farce. This cursed bloodline, it won't let me go even in death." He mumbled the words on the paper. "Lee Gun Song has become the head of the family. So third brother has taken power. What about eldest brother?" While he was confused, they prepared to leave. "I'll be back in an hour," one of them said. Lee Cheon tried to stop them. Wait, what happened to eldest brother? Seeing that they didn't seem to want to talk, he thought resentfully ignored, unable to get an answer. Li Qian asked further, "It's been 10 years since I last held a sword. A level 7 martial artist like me is now summoned for an expedition to an unexplored region. What does that even mean?" He turned his head and asked him back, "So, young master, are you going to refuse this order?" Li Qian secretly considered it. Refusing an order without a valid reason meant death. He immediately replied, "No, I accept." And so they silently left in a flash. Li Qian could only grit his teeth, clench the paper in his palm, and curse silently, "Damn it!" Returning to the present, the group followed the expedition deep into the unexplored region. The young man suddenly stopped, looked at what was in front of him, and exclaimed, "Ruins! Why are there ruins here?" Others were also surprised. "I can't believe there's such a well-preserved structure right in the unexplored region." The Sungmu clan member ordered everyone to enter. They walked on a rickety bridge that could collapse at any moment. The surrounding scenery was extremely eerie. A dinosaur-like skull and thousands of corpses lay scattered on the damp ground. The young man was fearful and doubtful. Could it be the corpse of an ancient monster? Suddenly, the eyes of the Black Sword Shadow member lit up as if he had found something strange. He ordered his comrades to advance and began to carry out his purpose. In an instant, the young man's head fell, caused by the Black Sword Shadow. They showed no mercy and rushed in to slaughter the people they had brought with them. The middle-aged man screamed in fear, "What the hell are you guys doing?" One of them wiped a blood stain from his face with his hand and replied, "Don't you all know already that your fate sooner or later is death? Consider sacrificing for the clan in honor." Then he targeted the man as his next victim and lunged. But before he could do anything, a sword from behind pierced through his chest. Li Qian was prepared for this, so he wasn't too surprised. He interrogated, "Who ordered you?" Despite being stabbed, he calmly replied, "The order came from the master to bring them here and kill them as cleanly as possible." He raised his blood-soaked hand, grabbed the sword piercing his chest, and gently snapped it, shattering it into pieces. His face darkened like an addict's, the wound on his chest healing rapidly. He said, "As long as you don't resist." Li Qian watched surprised as the wound healed completely. Another person, unable to bear standing still, rushed forward to fight the Shadow Sword Squad to the death. Before he could do anything, he was kicked by him, his whole body sent flying. Li Qian was also knocked down by him. He sneered, "Pathetic. I expected something from someone with the Li surname of the Sungmu clan, but it turns out he's just a useless person." In an instant, he jumped, ran quickly to Li Qian, then elbowed him in the chest, causing blood to gush from his mouth. Not stopping there, he also put all his strength into his leg to kick him far away with satisfaction. Li Qian's strength was gradually depleted, the amount of blood in his body decreasing noticeably. He thought he couldn't just die like this. Li Qian sat still, regaining his strength, looking around for a weapon for himself. After seeing a dull sword nearby, Li Qian quickly crawled towards it. He analyzed a sword strong enough to defeat a giant monster. Even though it had been abandoned for many years, it was probably still usable. After grasping the sword, Li Qian was suddenly dumbfounded by the next strange thing. The sword he aimed for. Unexpectedly, when he held it, it disintegrated into smoke. Li Qian, bewildered, asked the heavens, "Why?" The sword shadow only then appeared behind him. He uttered contemptuous words. "The Li family's bloodline is this despicable. After all, you are a descendant of Li. I will send you off in a worthy manner." His next move was to slash Li Qian's back with a sharp sword. Li Qian fell in pain, his face emotionless. He lamented to himself, "Heavens, you won't even give me one last chance. Am I really going to die here? My whole life I've only known how to struggle and run a failed life?" Suddenly, that worn-out sword appeared. Black dust enveloped the area, then wrapped around Li Qian. He only hoped that if he could be reborn again, then, scene change, a streak of light gradually revealed itself. He heard the voice of the person next to him. "This child? Is it Yu Jung's child?" After gradually opening his eyes, he saw his deceased father. He and the butler were standing by, talking. The father asked, "What happened to Yu Jung?" the butler replied. "When we found him, he was already—" The butler stammered and then stopped. The father looked coldly at him. Li Qian was confused, thinking, but hadn't his father already passed away? But he looked so young, not just his father, but the butler too. Li Qian raised his hands, wanting to touch them. But reality hit him. Seeing his hands like a baby's, he panicked. What's this? A child's hands. He was still confused. It seemed he had been reincarnated into the past. Is this me? What's going on? I was clearly dead. Could this be the afterlife or just a flashback before death? Tessin looked at him and gave him a name. This child's childhood name will be Li Qian. He's like the other children. Assign him to a wet nurse for care and dispatch some Shadow Sword Squad members as guards. Also let him participate in the Iron Selection ceremony with the 8th child. The butler heard this and replied, "You mean right now? But the youngest master isn't ready yet. Besides, there are several months between them." Tessin stared at Li Qian decisively. It doesn't matter. He was stunned when he heard that. Then they quickly left, leaving Li Qian a newborn baby in the room. He sighed in relief. Finally, gone. It really was his father. It had been a long time since he last saw him. The pressure was real. He moved his palms, reassessing the situation. But what was happening? It was too clear to be just a flashback. And that conversation just now, did that really happen? I don't want to believe it, but if so, then— Damn it, is this returning to the past? A few months after Li Qian returned to the past, a special day for the Sungmu clan arrived. It was the Iron Selection ceremony, where the children of the clan would reveal their talents through the weapons that chose them. His father had been chosen by countless swords and became the greatest swordsman of his time. His eldest brother was chosen by swords, magic books, and staves, thus becoming famous for his extraordinary swordsmanship and magic. And this time, the participant was none other than Li Qian. He was in a shiny outfit truly befitting a young master, which made Li Qian feel uncomfortable wearing it. The maid smiled brightly and praised him endlessly. Oh my, the young master looked so good in his ceremonial attire. And yet in this unfamiliar environment, he didn't cry at all. He's so mature. This person was Li Qian's wet nurse, Manhwa. She held Li Qian in her arms and said, "Everything will surely be fine. The young master's path will always be open." He also laughed because of that. To him, she was no different from his biological mother. But in the past, due to the jealousy of his other brothers, she was driven out of the clan. The only person who stayed with Li Qian until the end, crying for his future. But this time things wouldn't be like that anymore. He silently told himself that he would protect her at all costs. Another servant approached and said, "Young Master Li Qian, everything is ready." Father looked at Li Qian, smiled, and said, "Shall we depart?" Elsewhere, a man's voice spoke, "Clan head, everything for the Iron Selection ceremony is ready." Tessin replied sternly, "All right, let's go." A moment later, he and his retinue of servants behind him proceeded to the Iron Selection ceremony. Approaching the gate of the selection, inside were thousands of weapons neatly arranged around the stands, with thousands of people gathered to watch. In the hands of each servant was a child from the Sungmu clan. People in the stands were buzzing about Li Qian. Is that the child the bastard brought back from the outside? The hosts of this selection were in order the matriarch of the Sungmu clan Baek Hua Zion. Next was General Manager Li Tihong, followed by the eldest son Li Myongjong. And finally, the third young master, Li Gunsong. The eldest son spoke. He looked so small. No one has ever participated in the Iron Selection ceremony at such a young age, right? Gunsong chin in hand, face expressionless, replied, "Yes, that's right. I really don't know where this thing came from." He was very curious now. Tessin presiding called for a vote to begin the Iron Selection ceremony. The first one chosen was Hua, a cute short-haired girl placed on a stone chair. Tessin pulled out a small knife from his person. He took her hand, then made a small cut on her finger to draw blood. Hua cried out in pain. Blood from her finger dripped onto the stone platform. Then a streak of light appeared running along one of the weapons in the stands. People whispered to each other about the sword. "Oh my God, it can't be." The ancient holy grade renowned sword, the Kanga sword. That's the legendary sword that has been silent for generations. Tessin used the power emanating from his palm to draw the sword closer to him. The sword hovered in midair, finally landing in his hand. Tessin picked up Hua and announced, "From now on, the Kanga sword belongs to Hua." Everyone around rejoiced, gathered around, and congratulated Hua. Madam, another outstanding genius has been born into the clan. It's truly a joyous day for the clan. She smiled happily. Thank you, everyone. Suddenly, the corners of her mouth returned to their original state when she heard the next person was Li Qian. Everyone buzzed with discussion. Is that the child the bastard brought back from the outside? Others clicked their tongues in disapproval. Why let someone like that participate in the iron selection ceremony on Dia? Tessin raised his hand, placed Li Qian on the stone platform, then performed the ritual. He patted his head, his eyes full of trust. Li Qian was anxious. Finally, this moment had come. In his previous life, the sword that chose him was the Azure Sky Sword, a celestial grade sword. If so, what would happen in this life? His blood dripped onto the stone platform. A blue light began to emanate from the platform, illuminating an area. Meanwhile, in the stands, Hua Xian's expression was quite bad. Taehyung paid attention to her every gesture, speculating, "Looking at sister-in-law's face, it seems her mood isn't very good, huh?" After all, it was the bloodline that his eldest brother had hidden for so long. Well, it can't be helped. That child's fate is truly pitiful. Wanting to survive in the Sungmu clan as an outsider's child will be very difficult, especially when footsteps suddenly approached Taehyung from behind. The old man stroked his beard and chuckled. The general manager seems to have a great interest in an outsider, doesn't he? Taehyung felt annoyed, silently criticizing them for clinging to this outdated notion of pure blood. He was Elder Cheon-dong. Taehyung reluctantly greeted him, Elder. Elder Tang Shui thought to himself, someone whose true thoughts no one can guess, truly an opponent not to be underestimated. Cheon-dong leaned on his staff and asked Taehyung, "Is that the child, the one the clan head brought back?" He replied, "Yes, I heard the child was discovered and protected by the Shadow Sword Squad." The old man was puzzled and hesitant. "I really don't understand the clan head's thinking. A child of an outsider of unknown parentage and origin, yet allowed to participate in the iron selection ceremony. Haven't the outsiders long proven that they are not qualified to participate in this ritual?" Clearly, the general manager's experience is the clearest proof. Taehyung heard the harsh words, dissatisfied, trying to suppress his anger. "What did you just say?" The old man maintained a teasing expression and said evenly to Taehyung, "Oh, please forgive me. It's just that the story of the general manager who came from the outside and wasn't chosen by any weapon in that year's iron selection ceremony is already too well known. An outsider's child is still an outsider's child." The old man slammed his staff on the ground, goading, "It's best to know your place." Taehyung couldn't bear it and retorted loudly, "Don't go too far, if you continue to insult me." In the tense situation, the protagonist's aura made both men squint and follow him with their eyes. In the stands below, the blue wave reacted even more intensely than when selecting a sword for Hua. Old Cheon-dong stepped onto the platform, looked closely, couldn't believe his eyes, and blurted out, What the hell is going on?" Taehyung stood up, smiling joyfully. "How can this be? I saw it with my own eyes, but it still feels like I'm dreaming." A pure blue ray shot straight up from the stone chair to the blue sky, witnessed by thousands of people in the stands. It illuminated an entire area. The weapons one by one meant for Li Qian had appeared. First were the renowned Blood Spirit Spear and Iron Cage Saber, followed by the holy weapons Holy Sword Ma-A and Holy Thunder Ying-Long. Everyone cheered, marveling at the impossible event that had just occurred so absurdly. Not only the weapons in the ritual, but even weapons that already had owners were reacting. The sword in the eldest son's hand was no exception. It wanted to leap out of his hand and go to Li Qian. This surprised him greatly. How could this be? Myeongjong turned to his younger brother Gun Seong and said, "Can you believe it? Our youngest brother seems much more talented than I thought." He looked down at Li Qian, nodded in agreement. It was indeed so. The audience around was discussing animatedly. Wasn't there something wrong here? A child of an outsider cannot possibly achieve this result. But the iron selection ceremony couldn't possibly have errors. Tessin quickly calmed down, everyone be quiet. Standing before the crowd, he firmly asserted, according to the clan's rules, all weapons chosen in this ritual will belong to Li Cheon. But this matter is not so simple to handle. Therefore, I will listen to everyone's opinions. Then someone immediately raised their hand to give an opinion. Tessin asked that person, "All right, General Manager, what is your opinion?" "Oh." Taehyung smiled as if he had found something interesting and said, "I think this is inappropriate. The iron selection ceremony is an important tradition of the clan. Therefore, let the youngest master choose one for himself." Tessin also agreed with the general manager's opinion. He snapped his fingers, and each chosen sword hovered in the sky. Tessin finally accepted that proposal, then used magic to lift Li Cheon from the stone chair and place him on the floor. He wanted Li Cheon to choose the weapon he wanted for himself. He was surprised looking at the weapons, wondering to himself, "I don't understand why everything is different from my previous life. But anyway, this is still a good opportunity for me, so I will make the most of it." He scowled, crawled past the weapons, and analyzed them. The sword carrying the bloodline of the true dragon Praha. The holy weapon White Crane Spear forged from a part of a saint's body used to defeat great monsters. The Van Hen Staff created from a branch of the World Tree where spirits rest. The Spirit Moon, Sun Star Sword, forged at the moment when the moon, sun, and stars intersected. Countless great weapons awaited his choice, but he didn't have to hesitate for long. Li Cheon saw and chose the sword that made Taehyung bewildered. It was the sword that the founding ancestor of the Sungmu clan had found in the wilderness. For generations, no one had been able to unlock its hidden power. It was shrouded in mystery, only gathering more dust over the years. It was the Black Knight. Based on its known abilities, it hadn't even reached celestial grade. But precisely because it was related to the founding ancestor, it was always preserved as a celestial grade treasure. No ancestor had ever been chosen by the Black Knight as its master. Could this just be the unconscious choice of a newborn baby? Tessin used magic to pull Li Cheon and the Black Knight's sword towards him. His face darkened and he mumbled, "Those two are the arrangements of fate." Tessin raised the Black Knight's sword high, shouting, "Li Cheon has chosen the Black Knight. The ritual is officially over." Hua Xian in the stands was dissatisfied with the result. That outsider Li Cheon is truly a nuisance that has just appeared. If it's an obstacle, then it can only be eliminated. In the blink of an eye 9 years later, Li Cheon was now grown up. He ran to the door, called his wet nurse. "I'm going for afternoon practice." Gahua hurriedly ran out. "Oh my, let me see you off." Then they went together, because the wet nurse was very worried about leaving him alone. Gahua asked Li Cheon curiously, "Young master, there are still many other empty training grounds. Why do you always have to go to Area 1? Area 1 is too old." He cheerfully replied, "Because someone is waiting for me there." Suddenly, a loud shout came from behind. "That's not it," causing him and Gahua to turn their backs and look. "Holding the sword hilt too tightly will injure your hand. Come on, slash vertically one more time." It seemed that Hua, the 8th daughter of the Sungmu clan, was practicing with her master. Li Cheon looked and asked his wet nurse, "Is that the 8th young miss?" She frantically corrected him, "You should call her older sister young master. If anyone hears it will be a lot of trouble." Li Cheon pouted, thinking to himself, "Only 5 months older and you call her older sister?" Hua was practicing very hard, but her master was too strict. "The sword must be wielded as if it were a part of your body. Try again. You must control the sword delicately to avoid getting injured again. Come on." This made her blood boil. Hua angrily threw the sword to the ground and shouted back resentfully, "Master, why are you so talkative? It doesn't matter how you hold the sword as long as you pick it up." The master had a hard time coaxing her. "Oh, young miss, I'm only doing this for your own good. Calm down a bit and try again, okay? You'll do better this time." Hua pouted, but her anger gradually subsided. Li Cheon pointed at the master and asked his wet nurse, "Who is that person diligently teaching?" She replied, "Oh, that's Baek Yi-han, the leader of the Black Altar Society." Li Qian stared at Hua and Han, thinking, then suddenly said aloud, "A 9-year-old child having such a master, it's truly excessive." Gahoa heard this. She looked at him sadly and tried to encourage him. Li Qian will eventually have a worthy master who recognizes his true value. Li Qian turned his head and looked confused. Gahoa was heartbroken, tears welling up in her eyes. "It's because I'm incompetent that I can't take better care of the young master." Young Miss Hua has been eating medicinal food containing spiritual herbs since she was young. Li Qian, helpless, put his hands on his hips and comforted her. "There you go again. Wet nurse is someone I'm incredibly grateful to." She covered her mouth, moved, unable to contain her emotions. He continued, "But people like that, I don't need them. They only came because of the Sungmu clan's background." He asserted more firmly, "I already have good masters." A few minutes later, at the dedicated training ground for the direct lineage of the Sungmu clan area, Li Cheon gently pushed open the door and entered. This place symbolized the long history of the Sungmu clan. Now it was more symbolic than a real training ground. But Li Qian came here for only one reason. He stood in front of the door in the training area and gently pushed it aside. Because this place stored weapons older than any in the armory. Li Qian looked left and right and finally found what he wanted. He picked up the sword, looked around, then decided, "Today I will practice with this sword." After returning to his second life 9 years ago, he had undergone a major change. Among them, the most astonishing thing was Li Qian standing in the center, taking a deep breath, closing his eyes to regulate the energy in his body to become one with the sword. After completing the first step, he continued to become one with the sword. Specifically, Li Qian had the ability to read the memories contained within weapons, solidifying his foundation. Whether it was advanced or basic swordsmanship, the foundation was still the core. Slashing downwards, relying on the remaining memories in the sword, Li Qian used it to practice. It was the teacher that helped him develop himself step by step. The gestures and actions of its previous owner were now the foundation for him to learn from without needing anyone to teach him. The older, more advanced the weapon, or the more cherished it was by its owner, the clearer the memories of the past became. The teacher, hidden in the memories of the worn-out sword, Li Qian, relied on it to practice, establishing a solid foundation for his sword like a sturdy pillar that never wavered. After many hours of practice, he finally learned the 7-star sword first form Stone Wind by slashing hard in the air, creating a great force that affected the ground. Li Qian, though tired, was very happy to have finished learning the 7-star sword. Over the past 2 years, he had learned the memories of most of the weapons in the Sungmu clan. Suddenly, footsteps approached, accompanied by enthusiastic applause. He exclaimed, "Excellent! It's been a long time since I saw someone use the 7-star sword so perfectly." The person who said this was Tai Hyung, Li Cheon's uncle, a 4th-grade martial master, the general manager of the Sungmu clan. Tae-hyung, though a younger son, held the position of general manager due to his recognized talent. From his previous life to this one, he was one of the few people who genuinely cared about Li Qian. He bowed to receive his uncle's pat on the head and greeted him politely. He chuckled delightedly and exclaimed, "Just call me uncle," never skipping practice, truly praiseworthy. "Uncle has seen you at the training ground every time he goes to work and gets off. Being discriminated against compared to your other brothers, it's probably very difficult for you, but I hope you can persevere and overcome it." Hearing that, he replied, "I'm fine, uncle. After all, I also carry the blood of the Sungmu clan. Proving oneself with the sword, that is the meaning the clan's name carries. Therefore, I will prove my strength myself." He placed his hand on his chest, vowing with sparkling eyes. Tae-hyung sensed Li Qian's determination. He felt sad and pitiful. "The fate of a child like you born as a younger son is truly unfortunate." Tae-hyung then pretended to cough a few times, changing the subject. "By the way, you're almost of age for the naming ceremony, aren't you?" He made a suggestion. "It's a bit late, but before the naming ceremony, Uncle wants to be your master. What do you say? Are you happy?" Li Qian was shy but had to refuse. "I'm very grateful, but I can't accept." This made him squint and shout, "What? Why is it because uncle is your master that you're not satisfied? It seemed Taehyung misunderstood him, so he explained, that's not it. According to the rules, one cannot take a master before the naming ceremony. I don't want to make things difficult for uncle. He tried to persuade, but your other brothers are still openly breaking the rules. Everyone has used spiritual herbs and invited skilled masters to teach them. Seeing Taehyung place his hand on his shoulder, he gently pushed it away, smiled brightly and replied, but it's not because no one follows the rules that I should do the same. Moreover, as I said, I want to prove my strength myself. Taehyung saw the maturity in him and exclaimed, is this child really only 9 years old? These eyes look just like eldest brothers. Lee Cheon looked firmly at Taehyung, hoping he would understand. He then gave in and chuckled, it seems you have no intention of changing your decision, do you? This stubbornness is just like your father's. Taehyung rubbed Lee Cheon's head hard. He's at his wit's end. What a nuisance. Uncle can't do anything to help you. Why don't I help you? I feel so uneasy. Hey, if you need anything, just say it. Lee Cheon's eyes lit up. Thank you, uncle. That's exactly what I was hoping for. He rubbed his head, pretending to be shy. Actually, I have a request. Taehyung was delighted. Oh, really? Tell me. Lee Cheon grinned from ear to ear. I want to visit the underground tunnel of the Bitter Gourd. This surprised him. So the next day, a black car appeared at the treasury. The guard asked the car to stop. He bowed and asked the person in the car, excuse me, please confirm your identity and purpose of visit. The man showed his membership card and replied clearly, General Manager Lee Taehyung routine inspection. The person accompanying him is the youngest son of the Sungmu clan Lee Cheon for sightseeing purposes. The gatekeeper stood still. Understood, confirmed, please enter. The door opened and they began to enter. Lee Cheon looked around with interest, thinking to himself, this is the time to react like a child. He spoke, amazing. Is that the treasury? Taehyung looked at him through the car window and asked, are you that happy? Lee Cheon replied, of course. The treasury is where the clan's greatest treasures are kept. And the thing I'm looking for is also in there. Legendary weapons, ancient relics that people don't even know if they're real or not. For those who seek such fantastical things, people often say, everything can be found in the Sungmu clan's treasury. Entering the main hall filled with various weapons, Taehyung and Lee Cheon continued to move down to the basement. He introduced, the basement of the treasury is where weapons sealed for various reasons are kept. Lee Cheon showed an excited face. Among them are monster weapons that can devour their own masters. Right. He chuckled, that's right. It seems you know quite a lot. Taehyung threatened him. If you casually pick them up, I'm afraid both your body and mine will be burned by them immediately. Then he burst out laughing. What do you think? Are you scared? Making Lee Cheon stammer, not at all, absolutely not. He continued, don't worry. Anyway, dangerous things like that are not places we can enter. I have things to do upstairs, so take your time and look around. Lee Cheon replied, yes, uncle. He cheerfully stepped into the elevator, then said goodbye to his uncle. After everything was settled, Lee Cheon sighed in relief, relaxed his facial muscles. Playing the role of an innocent child isn't easy at all. Lee Cheon began exploring the treasury's basement, also known as the Weapon Burial Ground, a place where countless weapons and relics were sealed. The reason he came here was to find a special weapon. Endless was originally a short sword, but when infused with mana, it could change its length, shape, weight, and properties at will. In his previous life, Lee Gunsong found Endless in this treasury, and thanks to its overwhelming transformations, he obtained the title of Myriad Transformations. It was also thanks to that title that his most promising heir, his eldest brother, was surpassed by a third party like him and became the head of the family. Afterwards, he even hunted down and dealt with him, the one who was hiding. That was all he knew, and to prevent the tragedy from repeating like in his previous life, he had only one choice no matter how much time it took. He had to check everything one by one. Lee Cheon moved the pure black energy from his palm to appraise all the weapons. He was determined. This time I will definitely obtain Endless before Lee Gunsong. Next, he touched each weapon with his finger to identify it. But after several tens of minutes, he didn't find any with potential. Lee Cheon sighed. He had checked everything that looked like a short sword for an hour, but still couldn't find endless. He regained his composure. It must be here because I haven't checked everything yet. He walked past the display case on the other side to investigate. Suddenly, as he touched the edge of the table, an ancient sword fell. The short, rusty sword landed in front of him. Li Qian saw it, bent down and picked up the sword. He didn't expect this sword to be so old, but before he picked it up, the black energy in his palm reacted violently. The sword absorbed Li Qian's black energy, making him startle and withdraw his hand. Li Qian looked around. How could it be this bad? In an instant, the black smoke out of control spread around the cellar, then sucked him into the sword. When he regained his bearings, he was in another dimension. Li Qian's mouth moved about to say something. He couldn't believe his eyes when the space here was filled with corpses lying, scattered, piled up like mountains. Li Qian stood up, walked around, thinking, could this be the memory hidden in this short sword? But it's completely different from the weapon memories I've read before. It feels so real, as if I'm actually here. Before he could calm down, the beast arrived. The deafening roar that filled the space startled Li Qian. He quickly turned his back. High above an overwhelming presence that even nature feared, the primordial monster that emerged from the ancient blue-black A had devoured countless civilizations and exterminated wild beasts. Li Qian's legs were unsteady, the pressure on him immense. His face turned pale. There's no way I can win this battle. I have to run, but his spirit won't allow it. His trembling legs gave way, unable to move. He could only stare as it approached him. Suddenly, a stone man with a sharp sword appeared behind him, then leaped upwards, blocking Li Qian. He was bewildered. Since when had it been standing behind him? Leaning on the pile of corpses, the stone man jumped very quickly. He soared into the air with the rusty sword. But it couldn't hide the aura of an ancient hero. With just one slash that tore the enemy apart, the demon-slaying sword technique, a golden light flashed in the damp world. The stone hero's presence stirred the gloomy sky. The monster's corpse instantly disintegrated into pieces, torn apart, given no chance to regenerate. Dust billowed around, witnessed by Li Qian. He was stunned, bewildered, unable to believe his eyes. Could that monster be defeated with just one slash? He calmed himself. That's right. Who was that person just now? A black figure stood amidst the pile of flesh, monster blood still splattering everywhere. The stone hero's appearance gradually became clear. He turned his back and asked, "Who are you?" Li Qian was startled, stammering because he knew he was a visible entity in this world. He approached, demanding, "Why are you here? This is mercy. I will send you off without causing you pain." He raised his sword high, intending to finish off Li Qian. He was terrified, could only sit still, but unexpectedly before death came. Luckily, he was teleported back to the old world. Li Qian's hands were still trembling after the incident. He wondered, what was that scene just now? The feeling of pressure on my whole body still lingers, as if it were all real. Seeing the sword vibrating violently, he quickly crawled over and picked it up. Li Qian affirmed his own rationality, took the dagger and cut his finger a little, then dripped blood onto the rusty sword. Become one, no mistake, it's definitely it. I will be the master of myriad transformations. The blue wave on the sword illuminated an entire area. Thanks to his pure blood, the sword returned to its brand new original form. He picked it up, activated it a little, swung it back and forth to test its weight, then used all his strength to slash into the air. He made a horizontal slash at chest height. After testing it, Li Qian felt better. It's fine. He smiled like he had a bountiful harvest, finally found endless. Early the next morning, loud noises echoed throughout the house. A powerful sword slash split the wooden plank in two. Li Qian quickly wiped the sweat from his cheeks, muttering, "Failed again." He thought, "It's been a week since I got endless the sword I took from the underground armory that day. Currently, I'm keeping it in the form of a ring to avoid detection." Li Qian clenched his fists, recalling that day. What was it exactly? The stance that man used when he swung the demon-slaying sword, as if to remind me that I'm still not qualified. The black energy only showed me that technique and its name. Never mind the power, just the man's movements exuded an elegant beauty. But no matter how hard I try to imitate it, I can't do it. He smiled at the sword in his hand, then moved it with great force, slashing straight down. Li Qian smiled confidently. Even so, I don't feel impatient at all. In my previous life, I was just a looked down upon person, not even taught the basic martial arts of the clan. It was just one technique, but this was the first time I had encountered such an advanced martial art. He sighed in relief and determination. I can do it. I remember very clearly how that person moved in my memory, clearer than anyone else. Li Qian suddenly stopped. Wait, that man. I'm not an adult like him, but just a 9-year-old child. He looked at his small hands and thought, if I try to completely imitate the movements of an adult, of course I won't be able to exert my full strength. I have to accept this body slowly, naturally. He held the sword, took a stance, his face full of determination. His eyes gently closed. Li Qian swung the sword in a way that suited his body, whispering to himself, then decisively swung it down hard. The powerful sword strike created a large crater, causing a section of the ground to sink. Li Qian slowly lifted the sword from the ground, looked at his previous move, and exclaimed happily, "Very good. It seems I've got the hang of it." He clenched his fist, determined. Now it's just a matter of using mana, and it's done. No matter how many times I try to use the method in my memory, I still feel like an important part is missing, and I can't replicate it. He sighed again. In the end, the only way is to keep experimenting. He was engrossed in practice and didn't notice a figure standing at the edge of the wall behind him. All right, let's start again, Li Qian told himself. Meanwhile, the figure's face was smiling at him. Li Qian continued to swing his sword again. The mysterious figure suddenly rushed towards him. She tightly gripped Li Qian's sword, which was about to swing down, and called out, "Little one," causing him to involuntarily turn his head. The girl continued to ask, "Where did you learn that technique?" Li Qian was a bit flustered at this moment and asked back, "Who?" He thought, jet black hair and brown eyes. This person is from the main line of the Sungmu clan. He asked again, "Who are you?" This also surprised the girl a little. She spoke, "You don't know me." Then she laughed heartily. "Oh, right. You might not know me well, because I don't often show my face." She approached Li Qian and asked gently, "So what's your name?" He was a bit flustered and replied, "I'm Li Qian." She held his hand and shook it while introducing Cheon. "Your name is very special." "That's right. I'm Li Hua. Nice to meet you." Li Cheon's head was full of question marks. He thought, youngest aunt Li Hua. Remember uncle's words. That child, your aunt, is a bit different from everyone else. Your grandfather couldn't accept that. He suddenly turned pale when he remembered what happened in his previous life. But more than that, he just found himself lying on the ground, pouting angrily. Hua stood there teasing, your body is a bit weak, isn't it?" Li Qian thought, doesn't she think I'm strong at all? Hua suddenly approached him and said, "So little one, where did you learn that technique?" She bent down and asked. Li Qian wondered, "Why are you asking that?" Hua, her voice a bit excited, "That's ancient martial arts. Your youngest aunt here really, really loves ancient martial arts. That was also the time when ancient monsters roamed, wasn't it?" She cheerfully pulled out a small notebook from her collar, excitedly presenting it. "So this is a gift for you." Li Qian took the notebook, curiously flipping through it. A gift. The youngest aunt was also a bit excited. "Yes, open it and see." He looked intently. "The handwriting is so bad it's a bit hard to read. But is this magic? Not only magic, but also records of martial arts. The level is quite high, to the point that I can't easily understand it all." He thought, perhaps the rumors about her are not accurate. Then he suddenly stopped when he flipped to a page. Hua stood beside him, excitedly pointing at that page. "Oh, that one. These are ancient magics based on exposed mana," she explained. "In the old days, magic only used the exposed mana in the body without needing a mana core. Modern magic, on the other hand, relies on storing mana in the heart. But can ancient magic be considered outdated?" Li Qian looked at his youngest aunt in amazement, thinking, This is a perspective I've never considered. Jianghua continued. Perhaps the mana control techniques of that time were even superior to now. Therefore, your youngest aunt is also researching amplification and transformation techniques, but the records are too scarce. Li Qian, while listening to the explanation, looked at the notebook in his hand, amazed. The magic of endless. He suddenly handed the notebook to Jianghua, then ran off quickly, shouting back as he ran, "Youngest aunt, please wait a moment." Jianghua was a bit confused and asked back, "Yes? What's wrong?" Li Qian held the sword and began to follow his youngest aunt's instructions. Mana, from the mana core, spread throughout his body, but instead of absorbing mana back into the core, he only used it with exposed mana the way the man in his memory used mana, which he couldn't understand. "All right, I can do it." Li Qian seemed to understand the principle behind it. He swung the sword in his hand down hard, creating a long gash on the ground, cracking the surroundings. Both Li Qian and Jianghua were dumbfounded in amazement. He was so happy that he even spoke his thoughts aloud, "Success." Jianghua was so surprised that she quickly ran to him and asked, "What's that? That's amplification, right?" Li Qian turned his face away, his expression extremely awkward, and said, "That's right. It's amplification." Jianghua, her face extremely pitiful, held him tightly and shouted, "What? How did you do that?" He mumbled, "I just did it." She was a bit annoyed. "What do you mean? How did you do that?" Li Qian patted his shoulder, his face a bit dissatisfied. "Why should I tell you?" Jianghua replied bluntly, "Because it was thanks to the notebook I gave you that you knew." She had lived her whole life for this. She had been searching for it for over 10 years, even after being kicked out of her home. She pleaded with him, "If I do something for you, can you show me?" Li Qian was a bit unsure what to do with his youngest aunt's request. He sighed and began to make a proposal. "Then you must promise me 3 things." Jianghua wondered, "Promise?" Only then did he explain, "Yes, the first thing is that you cannot tell anyone anything about me without my permission. Of course, neither eldest brother nor father can't know." Jianghua's head was full of question marks. She asked back why. Li Qian sighed, "Because I don't like others talking about me without my permission." Only then did she realize, "Oh, I understand. I'm the same." He was a bit stunned when he saw Jianghua's expression. "Why do you look so unhappy?" Li Qian continued to set conditions. "The second thing is that you cannot lie to me. Because we must trust each other. I will also tell you the truth to the best of my ability." Jianghua's head spun a little when she heard his condition. Then she clenched her fists, determined, "All right. What's the last thing?" He continued, "The last thing is..." A year later, Gahua ran in from outside, holding a letter, shouting in panic, "Young master, young master." Li Qian, who was practicing at the time, stopped and asked, "Wet nurse, what's wrong? Why did you run all the way to the training ground?" She panted heavily and reported, "Here, look at this," then handed him a letter. Jianghua, standing behind, couldn't help but wonder, what is it?" Li Qian looked at the letter and thought, "It's finally here." Gahua spoke. "This is the summons for the naming ceremony." A piece of paper was unfolded. Li Qian held it in his hand, looked closely at a corner. Representative of the clan head Li Mijong. He looked at the letter, thinking, "Is father not home? I haven't heard anything about him presenting it." Jianghua, standing behind, exploded in anger, shouting, "The naming ceremony." Li Qian looked at the somewhat crazed Jianghua and wondered, "Why are you suddenly so agitated?" Jianghua stood there stroking her hair and shouted, "Everything is just getting started. Now is the most important time. If you participate in the naming ceremony, you will be held there. No, don't participate, never mind." While Jianghua was being noisy, he was still thinking. A year after making the deal with Jianghua, he had been studying magic with her. Modern magic focuses on elemental magic, while ancient magic relies on exposed mana. These two systems combine to create a completely new type of magic, which is her lifelong dream to achieve. Elemental mana is used to store and change mana properties, while exposed mana helps control and operate it. Thanks to that, His ability to apply magic surpassed children of the same age. Zhonghua was still muttering beside him. Can I really not participate in this? Studying magic is still more interesting. She kept muttering, making Li Qian quite uncomfortable. He spoke. You know it's impossible, right? Zhonghua sobbed, but Li Qian comforted. Don't worry. Even if the time is reduced a bit, I will still continue to practice magic and restore ancient magic. That sentence made Zhonghua astonished. She looked up. How can you do that? The training schedule for the naming ceremony will be very intense. Zhonghua's question made Li Qian suddenly smile. He confidently replied, I will do both at the same time. The next day, training began. Zhang Yu said, first endure the magic attack for 30 minutes. He said this while looking at the children thinking, it's different now. Electric currents move back and forth touching them. Normally, someone like Li Qian who had never undergone basic training would have been electrocuted and collapsed immediately, but he countered everything with magic. A murderous glint from Li Qian's eyes at Jiang, you made him jump. He thought, that kid is experimenting, observing the 8th young miss to assess his own level, and at the same time forcing the trainers to teach at a higher level. A 10-year-old younger son dares to do that. Jiang Yu broke out in a cold sweat stood there looking at Li Qian. Damn it, you call that a younger son? No, with such ability calling him, that is an insult to a martial artist. I must reflect on myself. This was no longer a simple training session to prepare for the naming ceremony, but an opportunity to impart knowledge to him with all their strength. After a long training session, Li Qian stretched and walked out the door, done. He recalled the scene of being struck by lightning inside the glass prison. This clan is crazy. To train their resistance to magic, they threw me into a magic-emitting device. Li Qian massaged his shoulder while thinking, but I didn't expect the other side to be the one to apologize first. Sometime the way everyone looked at me had changed. He tiredly moved outside. Anyway, let's rest a bit. A figure suddenly appeared beside him, reaching out to attack unexpectedly. But the blow was still blocked by him. Hua spoke, Hey, you bastard. Come out here for a moment. I looked at him with fierce eyes. Li Qian angrily pushed his hand away. What are you up to? Hua pointed straight at his chest, shouting loudly, her voice full of arrogance. Watch your mouth. I'm the legitimate child and you're just a concubine's child. Besides, I'm a year older than you. Li Qian thought, this is really troublesome, then said, I don't have time to argue with you. He turned to leave. Seeing this, she angrily shouted, her hand still gathering power, and advanced. Hey, don't ignore me. Li Qian was quite surprised by this action. You even dare to use mana. He involuntarily stepped back, gained momentum, intending to let it pass. But Li Qian quickly dodged Hua's punch, then used his hand to defend. Grabbed her neck tightly and pulled her up. He threatened, if you want to complain, go complain to your mother. Don't bother me, I'm busy too. She stumbled away after he released her, shouting loudly, her voice a bit unwilling. It's all your fault. Because you caused a huge commotion at the iron selection ceremony, I'm constantly being compared to you. Please know your place as a concubine's child and be quiet. It's too unfair. I lose sleep and appetite every day to train hard while you were born with superior talent. I don't want that either, but my mother is getting old. Suddenly, she covered her mouth. Li Qian quickly criticized, blaming others is so easy, isn't it? As you said, I'm a concubine's child. This status doesn't allow me to have such a luxurious right. You're losing sleep? Then don't sleep anymore. You can't keep up even without snacks. Then skip the main meal too. He provoked, if I annoy you, then use any means to fight me back. Then force me to apologize to you because that's the Sungmu clan's style. Hua still stubbornly clenched her fists. Arrogant brat. She shouted loudly, very well. At the naming ceremony, I will show superior achievements, then you force you to call me older sister, kneel and beg. Remember that. Li Qian smiled, faintly looked at her. Yes, I'll wait and see. In the afternoon at the training ground dedicated to direct lineage area number 7, a person was entering. The servant saw this and quickly ran over respectfully. Madam has arrived. Hua Zian, with a cold expression, said, Step aside. I have something to say to my daughter. The servant received the order, quickly replied, yes, then left the room. At this moment, Hua was actively practicing inside. Hua Zian spoke, what are you doing? Startling Hua, who turned her head, mother. She bowed awkwardly and replied, ugh, I'm practicing. Hua Zian stood opposite her, voice stern. I've heard about it. So you were overwhelmed by it. Instead, she taught, I've said it before. If you can't suppress it, then crush it. It's truly disappointing. If you're only training hard like this because you're afraid of punishment, then stop. Every word pierced her mind. Hua spoke in defense. I know what you think about my training, but I'm doing this because I want to. She clenched the sword behind her back, her voice trembling slightly. Hua Zian in a cold, emotionless voice. What? Hua still tried to explain. I will defeat that guy, but not because you ordered me to, but because I want to. I will decide for myself. Hua Zian stood there, her face grim. Provoked by that nobody, she trembled and bowed, clenching her fists. Hua Zian bent down and taught, you are the legitimate child of the Sungmu clan. You and he were different from the very beginning. Defeating him is a given, yet you let yourself be provoked. She took out a glass vial from her person and presented it. This is enchanting dream, a potent poison. If you can't overcome it, then trample it. Hua Zian handed it to Hua, who was standing there dazed. That is the way of the Sungmu clan. After handing it over, she left immediately. At this moment at Li Qian's residence, Gahoa looked at the computer screen and exclaimed in surprise, what? This can't be. The leaderboard was now displayed on the screen. Li Qian, seeing this, was also happy. What's wrong? Wet nurse. Are you less worried now? Gahoa was so happy that she hugged him tightly. I didn't help the young master at all, yet he did so well. Li Qian also comforted her. Wet nurse has helped me a lot. Don't say that. Suddenly, from outside the door, the noise grew louder, causing the two who were hugging to stop. Zhonghua appeared, flung open the door, and shouted, Little one, let's go practice. Li Qian turned pale and looked at his youngest aunt. I just finished practicing. Zhonghua touched her arm muscles and cheerfully said, that's why we have to continue. Practicing mana techniques will help you feel less tired. He stared at her and retorted, I've never heard of such an effect. Zhonghua quickly evaded, pouting, really, I guess. Li Qian sighed, looked at her. All right, anyway, I have something I want to show you. This sentence surprised Zhonghua. She was astonished. No way have you reached 1 star already. His youngest aunt's surprised words made him feel proud. It must be said that the Manhwa control technique had to go through 3 stages, strengthening the body to reach the strong body realm, transforming mana properties to reach the Qigong realm, demonstrating extraordinary power through mana to reach the Qi meridian realm. But her mana technique was different. It was also the first stage, but it could do more and unleash many other abilities. Therefore, her mana technique system was divided into levels called stars. Zhonghua, while transmitting qi to Li Qian, exclaimed, perfect. It really is 1 star. Do you feel strange when using mana meridians? I thought it would take at least another year. Li Qian trembled, hugging himself and lamenting, I only realized this while studying theory. Thinking back, it really was a crazy kind of training. If I fail to control mana, the balance between the mana heart and mana meridians might collapse completely. But in reality, just letting things happen naturally is enough. Mana is like water, it flows according to its inherent laws. In the end, our bodies are just vessels for mana. Zhonghua looked at her hand controlling mana, pondering, the body is a vessel. She was excited. Little one, I think I can do it too. It will probably take time, but I can do it. Li Qian, standing beside, could only sigh, thinking, did you just comprehend something? Zhonghua suddenly hugged him tightly and praised, thank you, my lucky charm. Making him uncomfortable, he could only scream in pain, gurgle, cough, broken ribs. Zhonghua released him, stood there making a determined gesture. Now let's move on to 2 stars. He was now lying, struggling on the ground, almost dead, he exclaimed. Zhonghua spoke again. From the beginning, You knew that your 1 star was different from the normal first stage, right? Li Qian sat up, his face expressionless, and replied, I know. She asked again, so, in your opinion, what do you use best? Li Qian pondered for a moment, then replied, the thing I use best? I think it's the sword. Jianghua quickly interjected, in my opinion it's not. That sentence made him quite confused. Li Qian bowed and wondered, but you've never seen me practice swordsmanship. She asserted, yes I have, a few times when I was free. Jianghua scratched her chin and explained, what I mean is, you have a talent that surpasses even swordsmanship. It's hard to understand when said in words, isn't it? Your greatest talent is mana technique. This sentence piqued Li Qian's curiosity. He was a bit surprised by that answer. She continued to explain, your mana aptitude is so outstanding that it overshadows everything else. I've tried teaching the mana technique I created to many people, but no one could do it. Li Qian now looked at the glowing spots on his body, thinking, before returning to the past I was ridiculed for not being able to use mana. Jianghua pointed straight at his face and declared, but with you reaching 2 stars now is not difficult. And if you succeed with 2 stars, then the naming ceremony will be like child's play, she asserted. After finishing her explanation, Jianghua cheerfully planned to take Li Qian to practice further. Now I will teach you techniques that truly focus on. He sat there also smiling cheerfully. Yes, I understand. Li Qian stood up from the ground and wondered, hey auntie, what's that thing beside you? Zhonghua looked at the wooden box beside her, smiled mysteriously, and pointed at it. Oh, this. A bullet was fired, grazing Li Qian's cheek, leaving a long scratch before embedding itself in the wall. Zhonghua smiled brightly and said, it's an iron ball. She controlled 3 marbles and explained, you must learn to release mana while moving. If you only stand still and use it, then that mana technique is no different from trash. All right, let's begin. Zhonghua looked at Li Qian with murderous eyes, making him feel uneasy. The next day at the training ground, Li Zhongquan held a weapon, stood sternly, and introduced, I am the leader of the Blood Soul Squad, Li Zhongquan. From now on, I will guide you on the secret arts of the Sungmu clan. He pointed at the pile of weapons behind him. Choose the weapons you will use and bring them here. You have 1 minute. Don't dawdle. Li Zhongquan's harsh voice made them quickly run down to get weapons. Hua secretly glanced at Li Qian, while he looked at the pile of weapons, only able to exclaim, really? Li Qian turned around, looked at her, who was bewildered, and cursed. What are you looking at? What do you want to say? Hua quickly retorted. What are you looking at? There's nothing to say. Right. She sneaked over and whispered to him, hey, you also use a sword, right? Li Qian sighed and replied, no. Hua wondered, looking at him carrying the pile of weapons away. Huh. But earlier, I clearly saw you learning weapon techniques. Li Zhongquan stood there staring at him and asked, what are you doing? Li Qian immediately replied, you told us to choose our weapons and bring them. He wondered, I told you to choose what you use. He held a variety of weapons and replied, these are the things I use. Li Zhongquan was a bit surprised by Li Qian's answer. He turned away. I thought you weren't that stupid, but it turns out you're a blockhead. Saying that, Li Zhongquan drew the weapon from behind his back and taught, engrave these words I'm about to say into your heart and mind. I said I would teach you secret arts, but it's not about techniques or stances. Li Zhongquan continued to explain, in the Sungmu clan there are countless secret techniques called Imperial Will. To comprehend that secret technique, you must first awaken the dormant instinct in your blood. He held his weapon and approached them. From now on, I will help you open up. Don't worry too much about awakening your instincts. He explained while taking a stance. Hua, worried, whispered to him, what is he going to do? Li Qian replied, if you don't want to faint right from the start, then get ready. Meanwhile, Li Zhongquan had closed in on him. Li Qian, startled, turned to his left. Li Zhongquan swung his weapon at him, sending him flying. Li Qian's eyes widened in surprise at the unexpected blow. Li Zhongquan chuckled provocatively. Can you block it? He stepped back a few paces, thinking to himself, damn it, I can't believe I have to go through this crazy thing again. In my previous life, I couldn't even complete this training, but this life is different. As he thought, Li Qian charged forward with his sword. He was brutally struck in the cheek by Li Zhongquan's weapon. Behind him, Hua also charged, but was struck in the back by Li Zhongquan. He thought to himself, so a month has passed since I started training with Li Zhongquan. No matter what, a 10-year-old child undergoing training to the point of broken bones and internal injuries like this is not training for children. But I have no intention of complaining. I'm gradually getting the hang of it. Li Qian seemed to have a sense of accomplishment. Hua had now regained consciousness after taking a powerful blow from Li Zhongquan. She dazedly asked, "Did I faint again?" Li Qian naturally replied, "That's right. This is your 22nd time. I've only had 16. Hua unwilling and annoyed. If only I had prepared better on the first day. Li Zhongquan stood there observing them both thinking, eighth young. Miss, this child has extraordinary physique. I used a bit too much force, yet she wasn't seriously injured at all. And that bastard son. From the very first day I had a feeling he was something valuable. At first, seeing him bring a pile of weapons, I thought he was some fool, but his skill with each type of weapon is quite good, and his practical application even exceeds expectations. Moreover, it's only been a month and I'm already seeing results." He smiled faintly. "Interesting." Li Zhongquan approached them and said, "Let's start training again. Everyone back to your positions." At this moment, both were exhausted after a long training session. Li Qian suddenly spoke. "Hey Hua, you're exhausted now," she replied irritably. "Huh? Calling me?" He outlined a plan. "I'll give a signal. You try to block it once." She wondered, "Why do I have to do that?" Li Qian nonchalantly, "Well, if you don't like it, then don't. I just thought I could land a blow on Uncle, that's all." That sentence left Hua speechless. She was determined and asked back, "Are you sure?" He nodded. "Sure." Hua shouted loudly, "You owe me." Then she rushed towards Li Zhongquan. Li Qian, standing behind, also began to rush forward. With his current strength, he thought, "I have no chance of winning, so I can only take advantage of numbers." Both began to rush forward. Li Zhongquan, while spinning his weapon, muttered, "Cooperating. Not a bad choice if the plan succeeds." He paid attention to their attack movements. Right at this moment, from the right, he counterattacked. Li Zhongquan used his weapon to block Li Qian's attack, sending him flying backward. He smiled faintly when he saw he had blocked the blow, then slowly rushed towards him. Li Qian refused to give up, quickly used his weapon to block and signaled Hua. Right at this moment, she rushed down from above to where the two were fighting. When Li Zhongquan's attention shifted elsewhere, Li Qian quickly threw his weapon far away, then grabbed the sword beside him and poured his strength into it. "There's only one attack that can cause damage, the sword I got from Mujin bamboo rice." As he thought, he poured all his strength into the sword and rushed into battle. Li Zhongquan, who was fighting, was surprised to see Li Qian rushing forward. He turned, intending to block that blow. Li Qian rushed past, suddenly releasing the sword. "This time it's over." He put strength into the back of his hand and punched straight at Li Zhongquan's stomach. A powerful stream of energy was unleashed. Li Qian smiled cunningly, looked up. "Can you block it?" He was stunned to see a huge hand blocking his fist. An extremely strong force made him cough up blood. Li Qian fell slamming onto the floor. Li Zhongquan approached him. "So it took 37 days. He clapped in praise. "Congratulations, you have opened your sixth sense." Then he turned to Hua, struck her once. "Young miss is still far from it." Looking at the two bruised children, Li Zhongquan cheerfully left, not forgetting to say, "Today ends here." Hua angrily cursed behind Li Zhongquan's back. "You said you could land a blow, and I believed you, you bastard." Li Qian stood there looking at his bruised hand from the punch, thinking, "In the end, even after activating mana, I could only penetrate a little. Even though it was just a small amount, I broke the taboo of not using mana." Li Zhongquan clenched his fist, determined, giving up a technique like that combined with excellent combat instincts will make him someone who terrifies the pillars of the clan. Night gradually fell. On the 47th day after Hua opened her sixth sense, the training with Li Zhongquan ended. The remaining time was spent resting and reviewing what they had learned. And at that moment, the person looking for him appeared right before his eyes. A familiar voice spoke, "You are Lee Cheon, right?" "My eldest brother, Lee Mi-yong-jong." He opened his mouth and called out, "Eldest brother Lee Mi-yong-jong, eldest son of Lee Gun-song." His title is Song Song, an unprecedented master, achieving quasi-level 2 in magic and official level 2 in martial arts. Everyone both admired and feared him. But to me, Big Brother is my only brother. Lee Mi-yong-jong and he were now sitting and chatting. He spoke up. "I'm sorry for not being able to pay attention to you. Even if it's just an excuse, I've been a bit busy lately." Lee Cheon understood and replied, "It's okay, I'm fine." His eldest brother smiled lightly. "This must be our first time meeting, yet you knew who I was right away, huh?" Lee Cheon confidently replied, "Of course, sir. Even if I'm just an incomplete child as your younger brother, how could I not recognize my big brother?" Lee Mi-yong-jong looked somewhat sad, looked at him and comforted. "Incomplete. You say don't ever say that again. Even though we were born to different mothers, you and I are still brothers." He thought to himself, a child who hasn't even had a naming ceremony calls himself incomplete. Lee Cheon was a bit flustered. "I'm sorry." He could only sigh looking at him. "No need to apologize, just understand that's enough." Lee Mi-yong-jong spoke again. "Next time you don't need to greet me so formally. We're brothers, why be so courteous?" Lee Cheon's face lit up with joy as he replied, "Yes, I understand." He thought, Big Brother was still like this when he was young, huh? Lee Mi-yong-jong rummaged through his pocket with his hand. "This is a meeting gift. When I enrolled at the Fan Magic University in France, I got this, but I think it will be more useful to you. A type of elixir called nectar." He took out a small glass vial. Lee Cheon held it in his hand, thinking to himself, is this the high-grade elixir that the French magic tower can only produce 500 milliliter of every 10 years? Then he spoke, "Big Brother is giving me such a precious thing again." Li Qian said sincerely, "I'm truly grateful, Big Brother." The words of gratitude made Li Miyongjong pause. He looked at him for a moment before speaking, "You're a bit different, aren't you?" He wondered and asked back, "Sir, what do you mean?" Li Miyongjong calmly explained, "All the younger siblings I've met before considered me a rival, so this feeling is both strange and pleasant." Li Qian quickly interrupted, "Big Brother, you've misunderstood a bit," which made Li Miyongjong stunned. He continued, "It's not that I don't consider Big Brother a rival. Since I was born into this clan, Big Brother is also my rival." Li Qian said confidently, "So don't just see me as an adorable child. Who knows, maybe one day I'll become Big Brother's greatest rival. I hope for an interesting competition." Those words made Li Miyongjong burst out laughing. He laughed, then ruffled his hair, speaking softly, "All right then, I'll wait for the day you become my strongest rival." Li Qian looked at this brother, thinking to himself, the eldest brother who has always genuinely loved and protected me. This time I will definitely protect you. He smiled gently at this precious eldest brother and replied, "Yes." A few days later on the sea, the Sungmu clan's second naming ceremony exam had arrived. Familiar figures were standing on the boat, heading straight to their destination. Red Blue Island, an island where the color of the land changes, depending on the density of magical power in the air. For a very long time, this place has been the venue for the Sungmu clan's naming ceremony. The boat gradually approached the island. The referee spoke, "Now I will give instructions for the naming ceremony exam. The young lady and young master will have to survive on Red Blue Island for 3 weeks and prove themselves. The devices distributed to everyone now are for determining location. Unless it's an emergency, you must carry them with you at all times. The final gate of the exam will open 2 days after the end of the 3rd week." Both of them began to put the tools on their hands after the rules were announced. "Good luck to you all." The referee finished speaking and left the two of them on the island. Hua looked at Li Qian. "Hey, I have something to tell you." He sighed. "It seems you've already decided, haven't you?" Hua stood beside him, indifferent. "Huh? What?" Li Qian said calmly. "Ever since training, you've been meaning to say something." Hua, having her nerve hit, quickly spoke, "Aish, that, how did you know?" He looked at her as if she were an idiot. How could I not know speak? I'll listen. This statement made Hua hesitate. She took off the locator from her body, then turned to him, signaling, "You pour yours out too and put it in together." Li Qian took off his device approached. "It's all poured out. What's wrong?" Hua quickly took out a glass jar, held it in front of him. "It's poison. Its name is Bewitching Dream." She spoke, making Li Qian's eyes widen in surprise. Hua explained, "It's only effective on children under 15. If exposed to air for more than 5 minutes, it will evaporate on its own. Once it seeps into the body, it will cause the magic power channels to be blocked for a long time." Li Qian suddenly became serious. "Who did you get it from?" "Oh, Hua held up the glass vial and shook it. "I don't intend to tell you." Then she threw it hard with one hand onto a nearby rock. One throw shattered it into pieces. "See, now there's no evidence left." She threw it so fast it left him quite stunned. Hua confidently puffed her chest. "I will defeat you fair and square. No need to use this poison. So you should also fight with all your might." Those words couldn't help but move Li Qian. He replied cheerfully, "No need to say it. I was already planning to do so." Hua stood there excited. "Good," she advised. "Have you put your locator back on yet? Don't risk going to the center of the island when you're not familiar with the terrain. It's very dangerous." Li Qian replied indifferently, All right. I know already. Are you perhaps worried about me?" Before he could finish, Hua shouted in annoyance, "What worried? I'm just afraid you'll die somewhere before you even get to fight me." As she was speaking, a loud noise suddenly erupted, cutting off their conversation. Both looked towards the forest. Hua comforted, "Then don't die, okay? I'm going ahead." She shouldered her bag and started to leave. Li Qian stood there watching her figure, a little regretful. She's gone. Despite saying that, he thought to himself, "My goal isn't the periphery of the island." He resolved, "All right, I should get going too." Heading straight for the center of Red Blue Island. Over here, the judges were observing. One person spoke, "Indeed, the 8th child of the Sungmu clan. She's already completed her first hunting mission. The number of monsters she's taken down is not small. After all, this is probably her first real combat experience. But that sense isn't something that comes naturally." Cheo Jiang voiced his thoughts. "It must have been 47 days. At this time, Li Yongguan in the corner also offered his opinion. "This child wasn't originally like this. I once thought it would take him at least 2 full months. Although he has talent, it's only to this extent. Simply put, someone stimulated him." Li Yongguan was observing Li Qian's actions on the screen. Cheo Jiang noticed his current actions. "But what on earth is that kid doing?" Li Yongguan replied from behind, "It seems he's looking for shelter." Everyone in the room began to discuss, "Like a little mouse running away. Coward, truly a descendant of the Sungmu clan." At this moment, a voice cut in, "Stop talking." Li Miyongjong spoke up, "In a dangerous place like this, finding shelter first is a wise move. There's nothing to criticize." The man in the corner couldn't argue back and chimed in, That's right." The person next to him also laughed along. "Maybe it's because we've been watching the 8th young lady so much that our standards have risen." Cheo Jiang looked at the screen and suddenly spoke, "In the Sungmu clan, being normal is a sin." The old man stroked his beard and chuckled, "Isn't it?" Everyone there agreed. "That's right, if you think about it carefully, it is. Someone with Sungmu clan blood behaving like a commoner is quite ridiculous." Li Miyongjong sat there clenching his fists, thinking, looking down on and mocking a child just because of their background? Since when did our clan become like this? Or perhaps we've always been this way. He looked up at his younger brother. But what is Li Qian planning to do heading towards the center of Red Blue Island? Li Miyongjong then secretly glanced to the side. Taehyung was sitting there gritting his teeth and complaining, "Tsk, what the hell is this kid thinking?" He also felt a bit helpless. "I'm not the only one who finds this confusing." Li Miyongjong sighed. "What on earth are you planning to do, Li Qian?" On the island at this time, Li Qian had found a cave. "This place will do." He carefully performed some incomprehensible actions, burning several types of herbs and blocking the entrance. Over here, the group of judges was observing, His hiding skills aren't bad. Indeed, Cheo Jiang, with a surprised expression, suddenly spoke, "Wait a minute, hold on. What is that kid doing?" On the screen, Li Qian was manually removing the device from his hand. The judge's side was surprised, only managing to utter a few sounds. Could it be he? At this moment, he used leaves to cover the device. On the screen, the filming signal suddenly went out. Li Yongguan in the room could only chuckle to himself, then laughed out loud. Truly unpredictable. The two people in front could only hold their foreheads helpless. On Li Qian's side, after covering the device, he heaved a sigh of relief. It's not necessary for others to see. He channeled the magic power from the ring on his hand. Now I can use it endlessly. A sword appeared in midair. Since I'm on Red Blue Island, I have to harvest as much as possible. Li Qian, with a confident expression, held the small sword in his hand. Well then, let's go. At this moment, his face contorted, looking at the pot of water that looked like poison before him. He could only sigh. This should be it. It looks terrifying. Is this really magic tea? Anyone looking at it wouldn't think this is water infused with magic herbs. Li Qian scowled as he stirred the pot of medicine. In my previous life, I didn't even have money for cheap elixirs, so I had to trail after herb gatherers and pharmacists to find magic herbs. He thought of his youngest aunt's advice. Red Blue Island is filled with magic power in the air. I must use it to strengthen my magic power. Li Qian was helpless. His youngest aunt had said so. If I drink water infused with magic herbs, it will definitely be more effective. Li Qian looked at the pot of herbs, his face completely scrunched up, reassuring himself, "Phew, all right." The brew descended upon the island. The pot of herbs was empty, rolling on the ground. He thought, this truly is a taste from hell. The 3-week solitary battle officially began.